Hey everybody! Charlie and I are two here, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We last left off, we found a disc that we believe was part of a deal between Inspector Gregson and Mr. Graydon here, in which Mr. Graydon traded the disc for information about the crime scene from Inspector Gregson. Now we have to prove that that was the case, because Mr. Graydon said, no, I know nothing about it. And we just asked Gregson. Let's see what he says. He says, ladies and gents of the jury, as a Scotland Yard inspector, I will declare this and nothing more. I am acting in the best interest of the country. Whatever I've done, it's been in the name of justice. So, as members of the public in this fine country, I'd like to think that justice will be your guiding light when you're making your decisions. This is quite a quandary indeed. Rarely have I encountered such extraordinary tumultuousness in the concluding of a trial. Nevertheless, in the absence of any further evidence to be presented, I believe it is time that we put the matter to the jury for their final leanings. Is it, though? We just exposed that a deal happened between those two, and that Mr. Graydon lied about everything. So why would we be concluding the trial now? Well, now, as a fellow servant of Queen and Country, I must say I sympathize with the old inspector. Yes, he's a dependable man, I'm quite sure. In service, one becomes a good judge of character. Even crossing your eyes doesn't help when it comes to looking at this case. It's all blurred to me. Well, as a fellow professional, I'd like to put my faith in a detective, really. Graydon is highly skilled operator. Stop. Currently in presence of idol. Stop. Detective has very much trust in eyes. More than this, I cannot say. I don't believe it. These 6 jurors are... They're going to believe Gregson? If they declare their decisions now, is Jenny going to be found guilty? If I don't manage to produce some definitive evidence right now, then we're going to lose. Either some proof that Graydon killed Mr. Windibank, or stole those government secrets, or some evidence to force Gregson into admitting that he struck a deal with a witness. Well then, counsel, I think it's time I imposed on the jurors to declare their final decisions. Nope. That is, unless you have some compelling evidence you have thus far not presented to the court. If I let the judge call on the jurors to announce their leanings, Gina will be found guilty. So there's no choice then, Runo. You have to throw some more evidence at them. This is it now. It all comes down to this. You keep saying this statement, and you keep making me think that we're about to do the final decision, and then there's like hours and hours of gameplay to still go. Who do I present evidence against? Gregson or Graydon? Alright, so if we present evidence to Graydon, he will lie. Inspector Gregson will probably lie, but he is the linchpin, right? We've already established that Graydon is a liar and not telling the truth, but Gregson is the one that the entire jury is saying that they trust. So if we break the trust with Gregson and the jury, then we may be able to swing this around. So yeah, we're going to say Gregson. Inspector Gregson, there's one final piece of evidence I would like you to see. I don't know what the evidence is, though. If you refuse to acknowledge that you did in fact strike a deal with the witness here today, then you leave us no choice but to examine this piece of evidence thoroughly. Well, go on. This is my last chance. It looks like I'm going to have to force his hand here. One final piece of evidence to get this detective to admit the deal he clearly struck with Graydon. I have an idea. I'm going to save. So, Gregson says that he doesn't want details of this case to be exposed, which is why he's being so secretive and why he's feeding the witness information Because in his mind, his case is a lot more important than Jenny's innocence. But I believe if we present the music box and threaten to play both of the discs here in the courtroom, he will have to stop us, right? Let's try it.
Take that!
Is that Mr. McGilded's peculiar music box, counsel? Yes, with a disc already in place ready to play. I think perhaps now would be a good time to listen to the sound produced by the music box again. Only this time, with the second disc we've just discovered set in place as well. Goodness, this disc, counsel?
Hold it!
No, wait, I can't let you do that. Yes, I was right. My hunch was right. Okay, so he doesn't want those secrets to get out, so he will admit to that crime in order to prevent government secrets from being leaked, because he said everything he does is for that greater case and to protect national security. Why not? Because it's got nothing to do with this case, that's why.
Objection!
Not true, Inspector. Eh? The defense has already proposed that the sounds heard by the court earlier from this music box were part of a Morse code message. We know that Morse code comprises of 2 distinct tones. The defense believes that the second disc contains the second tone needed to complete the message. And now we have a chance to confirm that theory. For crying out loud, Sunshine, we're talking about state secrets here. If you go letting the whole courtroom hear confidential information like that, it's treason. Then do you admit to the charge? That in order to protect those state secrets, you engaged in unlawful dealings with the witness? You're mad. If you let that secret information out into the public domain, you'll be making an enemy of the entire British government, you idiot.
Objection!
Let's not forget, Inspector, that you, a Scotland Yard officer, leaked confidential case details to a witness. That you continue to lie to the court, and because by fair means or foul, you're determined to do your duty. Well, by fair means or foul, I'm prepared to do mine. Don't you dare. I will stop at nothing to protect my client. I don't care who I make an enemy of. Uh-oh, hallowed chalice time. My lord, if you please, the court must hear the sounds made by that music box. Come on, Van Zykes, for Pete's sake, stop him.
Objection!
Uh-oh, here comes the foot. Inspector, you should know my methods by now. I'm a prosecutor. I'm no Scotland Yard puppet. Erg. In this courtroom, my duty is to the law, so let me propose a toast to uncovering the truth. By fair means or foul. No! Very well. The defense's stance here and that of the prosecution has been made very clear, I feel. Therefore, in accordance with the defense's request, the court will now listen as this music box is set in operation once more. Oh, that's a cool change. Cool perspective change there with the dual-sided discs of that player, and then turning to look at the witnesses here. This time with the second disc in place and both discs playing simultaneously. Oh, listen to that. It's unmistakable now. It's Morse code. All right, I admit it. Whatever you want. But for the love of God, shut that bloomin' box up. All right, did we do it? Is this it? Let me ask you again then, Inspector Gregson. Did you or did you not strike a deal with the witness next to you in the stand, Mr. Ashley Graydon? Specifically, did you furnish the witness with confidential case details in exchange for this music box disc? Did you reveal the existence of the peephole in the pawnbroker storeroom door, Inspector? I did. Stop. What are you doing, man? It's all exactly like the young Eastern lawyer said. When the trial resumed after the recess and we were stood here in the stand together, that's when he approached me with the deal. Shut up, you imbecile. Shut up. Psst, you there. You're the detective who turned up at the pawnbroker the other day, aren't you? I may have something you're looking for, Inspector, with me at this very moment. Sorry, drinking some water. So how about it? So how about a trade? I suggest you accept. Our information that may make certain individuals uncomfortable will soon become very public indeed. I couldn't let that information become public knowledge, not under any circumstances. So I accepted the man's proposal and told him details about the case that should have put him in the clear. The peephole in the storeroom door and the bloodstains on the overcoat. By giving false testimony, this witness intended to have the defendant wrongly accused of murder. Inspector, you knew that. Yet you still revealed those details to facilitate the witness's perjury. I did. But then it turned out the peephole had only been made that night after the incident took place. Scotland Yard wasn't aware of that, if I'm perfectly honest. Well, Mr. Graydon, what do you have to say for yourself? Ugh. There's nothing and no one left for you to hide behind. You struck a deal with the inspector in order to escape conviction of a very serious crime. Namely this. You were the third intruder who broke into the pawnbrokery on the night in question. And you perpetrated the murder of the proprietor, Mr. Pop Windybank. Nerd, you. Oh, he's pissed. He broke his cane. Traitor. Oh, is he gonna kill Gregson? Bailiff, restrain that man at once. That's it then. It's all over. Is it? Lots of dots. I despised my life growing up. The slums are vile places. Oh, this must be Ashley. I was cursed from birth, born into poverty, the son of a penniless artisan. My parents did nothing but quarrel all day long. What little money they had was never spent on me. So I set about studying, to better myself, to one day escape from that hellhole. And you eventually became a communications officer. I admire your determination. But then you decided to try to sell government secrets? Why? For more money, right? Isn't it obvious? Because I wanted money. Even now, years later, the nightmares of my life in the slums wake me in the small hours. I wanted to drown them out. More money than anyone who lived in the squalor could ever imagine. Then one day, I met him. Mr. Magnus McGilded. You're a fiend with a queer talent, so you are. I have money to throw your way if you're interested. All you need to do is go along with me little plan now. I was to steal the ministry's telegraphic message logs, and McGilded would buy them for a handsome sum. As I was responsible for inspections of the ministry's communications office, it was a simple enough task. The lure of the devil's offerings, how easy it is to succumb. But you must surely have realized the seriousness of the crime you were committing. And for that reason, I took great lengths to ensure that my actions were untraceable by using the music box. My father was a brickmaker, though my mother divorced him when I was still a child. Yes, Mr. Mason Milverton. That's right. He was very skilled with his hands. He'd once been a music box maker's apprentice. I imagined his skills would be sufficient to create a machine that could generate Morse code. So I sought out my father again to employ his services. It was the first time I'd seen him since I left the slums 10 years earlier. Look at you, Ashley. What a fine gent you've become, hey? He was a different man to the one in my memory, a thin, frail old man. But poverty had never broken him, never corrupted him like it had me. I was sure that he wouldn't help me if I told him the real reason. So I made up a story. We got some work for you, Father. I need some music box discs made. Music box discs, eh? A musician friend of mine has written some music he wants to sell to the public. I brought the score with me. There are 2, actually. I'd be delighted, son. It's been 20 years since I did any work like this, though. Fetch my tools, would you? They're in the loft. That's how I had him make the 2 discs. Thereby splitting the information in 2, you were taking considerable precautions indeed. I was to protect myself as much as anything. It meant that I could deal with McGilded in 2 separate transactions. The first involved the first of the 2 discs and the music box for playing them. I exchanged them with McGilded for 10 guineas. Then on receipt of the second disc, he would pay me 1,000 guineas. So what happened on the omnibus 2 months ago? Was the second part of the deal the exchange of the second disc? Yes. I'd sold the man information that was that way a number of times already, but it seems he became reluctant to part with his money. That doesn't quite make sense, Mr. Graydon, for why was it that on the omnibus 2 months ago, your father, Mr. Milverton, was the one dealing with Mr. McGilded and not yourself? When I received the 1,000 guineas after my first completed dealings with McGilded, I decided to give 200 to my father for his troubles. But my father realized something was amiss. In time, he worked out that I must be involved in something dubious. And when he did, he said to me, "Next time there's an exchange, you'll let your old man do it, understand? Otherwise, I won't take your money anymore." He was probably trying to figure out what was going on. That was my father's way of dealing with it, I suppose. Climb into the omnibus, hand over the second disc, and take the money from McGilded. That's it. He had no idea what was actually on the disc I'd asked him to make. He never knew. Just like I'll never know why everything went so horribly wrong that night. All I know is that the disc was taken from him, and he never returned home. It was only then that I found out what sort of a monster McGilded really was. So after 10 years of not once uttering it, I swore on my father's name. To exact revenge. Revenge? Yeah, I need a class as well there, Van Zykes. As anyone with even the remotest knowledge of the man will no doubt be able to imagine, McGilded brought all his wealth and influence to bear in the most despicable of ways. To crush any semblance of justice in his trial. The crime scene was tampered with, evidence was fixed, and witnesses were bribed. That trial 2 months ago was a farce from start to finish. My feet had barely touched British soil back then, and I walked into that hornet's nest completely unaware of the sinister background to it all. I'd made plenty of money out of my dealings with McGilded by then, so I spared nothing in my arrangements 2 months ago. I knew exactly who to hire. If you're willing to pay the price, there are people in this city willing to do anything you ask. McGilded himself had shown me that. Are you saying that? I think you have the picture now. After he twisted everything to his favor in this courtroom to ensure that he walked free, I took matters in my own hands and delivered the justice that monster deserved, so he had him burned. That tragic accident following the trial here 2 months ago was planned and executed by yours truly. McGilded's death that day was caused by this man. Everything is ready, sir, if you'd like to follow me into the courtroom. Was that you in disguise? Or is that just somebody he hired? What's this, officer? 'Tis sooner than I was led to believe. Hope it's not inconvenient, sir. There were some changes to the schedule. Well, I must be making tracks now. 'Tis time for the inspection. They're going to examine the omnibus again, so I'm told. I asked if I could be present for it myself. So that policeman who came to tell McGilded he could examine the omnibus again. That's right, an imposter, hired by me. McGilded used his wealth to manipulate the trial. He paid people to adulterate the omnibus with all manner of false evidence. He threatened witnesses to lie in their testimony. So I gave the man a taste of his own medicine. Once the omnibus was doused in paraffin, one of my sham policemen ushered McGilded inside and sent him on a one-way journey to hell. To hell! How's your cane not broken? An eye for an eye. That's how I avenged my father's death. Spine-chilling account, indeed. But that wasn't the end of it for me. There was a loose end, you see. A loose end? Yeah, the discs. Yes, I should think it's obvious. The second disc, which my father had taken to exchange with McGilded. Ah, yes. There was indeed no mention of it in the man's trial 2 months ago. Clearly because it had been removed from the scene of the crime. When I realized it was missing, I remembered something. Something from the first time I dealt with McGilded. This is the first of the two discs and the music box you need to play them. Well, look at that now. What an ingenious little invention. So then, as promised, 10 guineas for ye, young man. What's this? Windybreak's pawnbrokery? Aye, 'tis a pawnbroker's ticket, so it is. You can use it to redeem an article I've deposited there for you. There's no need to give a name, just hand over the ticket and tell the fiend the watchword. I've put a jewel in pawn for you. It'll fetch a good 10 guineas if you sell it, so it will. I've never heard of a pawnbrokery being used in quite that way before. Have you not, Mr. Graydon? London's pawnbrokeries are very useful places, you know. Each one is like an extremely secure vault. Huh. Also adds another layer for kind of dead drops. There's still a paper trail, but not as much of one. And they don't have to carry the money on them. So I knew that if he had taken steps to hide the disc, it would be in that pawnbrokery somewhere. And then on the night he killed my father, he must have entrusted the ticket to someone. Yes, to Gina. I remember now that when we first met you at Windybanks that afternoon 2 days ago, you had a description of Miss Lestrade written down. How did you know who you were looking for? From the trial, that pickpocket's testimony was clearly peculiar. Anyone could see that. I realized immediately that she was another of McGilded's pawns, that he must have threatened her somehow. I was fairly convinced it would be her who had the ticket, so I started to make some inquiries. I had a strong suspicion the girl would come out of the woodwork on the redemption deadline. And he was absolutely right. And yes, sure enough, she did. All I needed to do was wait until the girl went to Windybanks to redeem the articles. But unfortunately, she redeemed only McGilded's overcoat and the one disc that was in its pocket. The all-important music box with the second disc inside was missing, because it had already been forfeited 2 days earlier. But I was unaware of that fact. Had I not been, I could have avoided my nighttime excursion. Meanwhile, as our investigation into the stolen government secrets was progressing, we picked up on the fact that Mr. McGilded was involved. Inspector, you've recovered fast. My orders were to recover the stolen information as quickly as possible. So we started gathering the fellow's possessions and examining whatever we could lay our hands on. We had a full-scale investigation going on at the yard, but we had to keep it as quiet as we could. Then, when the inspector here took the disc from me in the pawnbrokery that day, I became nervous. I was sure the music box and the second disc were still there in the shop somewhere. So I knew that it was a race against time. I had to find those articles before the police did. So that's what prompted you to break into the place that same night. With the help of your old friends, the Skulkin brothers. What happened that night in the pawnbrokery? I can only describe it as a nightmare. While Nash and Ringo were searching the counter, I'd located the music box I'd sold to the McGilded on the shelves of the forfeited articles. And the second disc was inside? Yes. I slipped it into my pocket with a very deep sigh of relief. But then, something entirely unexpected happened. What are you doing in my shop? Bang. A gunshot rang out of the shop and I felt a sharp pain in my left arm. The broker fired his gun and the bullet pierced your limb. Yes, exactly. But unfortunately, I decided to bring my own gun with me that night, just in case. Before I knew what was happening, I'd fired back. The man had already turned to flee. I hadn't intended to fire in his direction, much less kill him. But unfortunately for both of us, the bullet hit home. It struck him in the middle of his back, and he fled through the storeroom door for refuge. A sorry tale. It all took place in the blink of an eye. I don't imagine Nash and Ringo even realized what had happened at first. I was terrified, so I fled. And that's the whole story. That's everything that happened at Windybanks on that wretched night. Well, we should have cleared Gina then. So we've done it. I believe this is probably it. So we're going to let this episode continue. And we're going to probably have this be the finale. Seeing as how there's 2 minutes on my timer left, I feel like there's probably just a bunch of dialogue now. Earlier, you called McGilded a monster. A man who used his wealth and influence to distort the facts and escape justice for the crime of murder. What tragic irony. For what you have done is exactly the same. You've become the very monster you saw and despised so deeply in McGilded. Yeah, he has. Sure it wasn't written that way on purpose or anything. Yes, I think I have. All right. Well, this has been a long and exhausting trial. However, it would seem that at last we have arrived at the truth. Inspector Gregson, what of Mr. Ashley Graydon? He's been restrained, my lord, and is being escorted to the yard. He'll be charged with the murder of Mr. Windybank and the stealing of government secrets. Very good. And you, Inspector? Regrettably, you will have to face charges yourself. Yes, my lord. Of course. It transpires that you were complicit in helping a criminal escape justice. That fact remains, whether or not you were doing so in the line of duty. The crime is a serious one, Inspector, and inexcusable. Now to the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. Yeah? It is time for the final adjudication. Is the jury ready, Mr. Foreman? Yes, sir. Garadeb Squadron standing by, sir. This is really it now. The last push, the final call, the finishing whistle. My men are ready to deliver their verdicts. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now declare your final decisions to the court.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
All right, we did it. I don't know how that fire seems to have weight to it, but cool, I guess. Ha 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 ha, that's the stuff. I'm off the hook. Finally, Runo, you finally managed to do it. Finally is the word. I really wasn't sure if we'd come out on top for a while there. Also, I believe this case had to make up like half of the game, right? Or am I just feeling that way? When I logged into Steam to play this today, I think we had like 40 hours played. And I've already got, what, 1, 2, 3, so we're at 41 and a half hours now. Finally is the word. I really wasn't sure if we'd come out on top for a while there. Susie was right. You're the best lawyer in the world. Well, I don't know if that proves we're the best in the world, but we're certainly okay. Miss Lestrade, I'm not finished with you yet. Eh? What are you looking at me like that for? Before you start enjoying your freedom, there are certain other crimes to consider, Eh? 2 months ago, in my courtroom no less, you gave false testimony, did you not? And in relation to the trial today, not only did you unlawfully enter Windybake's pawnbrokery, you also attempted to abscond with Mr. McGilda's property, it seems. And that's true. I never done nothing of the sort. Of course not. It's not like you were gleefully wearing McGilda's coat in your cell yesterday or anything. Aw, just when I was getting excited about throwing a party for Jenny this evening. And turning our attention to the defense. Determining that, when played together, the music box disc contained a message in Morse code was... Well, it was certainly a most unexpected revelation, counsel. Come on, can we get a nod from Van Zykes? Quite so, my lord, the prosecution was caught entirely off guard. In fact, I think we should applaud my learned friend's courage here today. I propose a toast. Heck yeah! To demanding that government secrets be disseminated before the entire courtroom. Good one, Van Zykes. Very sorry about that. It was the only way that I could get Inspector Gregson to admit what he'd done, so... If I may say something on that point. Isn't that? It's, about the sounds produced by the music box before. I do wonder if that was really Morse code at all. What? What are you saying, madam? Oh, well, it's just that I'm really rather fanatical when it comes to Morse code, you see. So much that the whole world seems to be covered in dots and dashes to me, in fact. So like you see the Matrix, but in Morse code. Goodness, madam, an unhealthy level of obsession one feels. But I must say that in my opinion, the sounds produced by those two discs were nothing more than that. A meaningless series... Serious? That must be series, right? A meaningless series of two different tones. What? What? Can that really be? Wasn't Morse code after all? My lord, the defense would like to listen to the music box again. Are you off your nut? How many times do I have to tell you? Those discs contain ministerial secrets, sunshine. This courtroom is not an appropriate forum to discuss the nature of the government communications. We know McGildy conspired to trade national secrets with our enemies, secrets acquired from Mr. Graydon. Now that the man has admitted to his crimes, we have no need to pursue the matter further. Ugh. But it's really going to bother me. I'm sure the dad, since he wanted to deliver the disc, probably altered them in order to protect national security. Mr. Thrice-Fired Mason. Miss Lestrade. Yeah, me lord? That which you have seen today here in this courtroom has been extremely disturbing. Falsified evidence, intimidation, perjury, a grim catalog of depravity. An appalling experience to befall any child. Come on, it ain't nothing I don't see most days in the back slums. I beg your pardon? If you're weak, you pay for it. That's just how life goes. Gina. But look, I reckon I've worked something out today. The world ain't fair, but if you want it to change, you gotta start at home. You gotta change how you are yourself. That's facts. That's big facts right there, Gina. Why don't you say it louder for the people in the back? Change yourself first, then worry about everybody else. Well, that's a very laudable lesson, I would say. I eagerly look forward to the born-again Miss Lestrade never gracing my courtroom with her presence again. Now, with regard to the murder of Mr. Pop Windybank, proprietor of a pawnbrokery business on Baker Street, I hereby declare the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, not guilty. Do we get the fireworks inside somehow? We do. Tell James Hetfield not to stand too close. Who let you have a gun? Why do you have a fireworks shooting gun in the courtroom? That is all. Court is adjourned. Gavel slammed home. Oh, we're going to have a conversation with Van Zykes, like for real? Tell me, Mr. Dreamy-Eyed, about your past. Are you indeed a vampire? On a personal note, I must say you've surprised me, my Far Eastern friend. Why you gotta be racist about everything? Just say friend. Why does he gotta be a Far Eastern friend? Why can't he just be my friend? Despite being a Nipponese, you saw through the pretense to the malice that festered within the Englishman, or that Englishman. And at the same time saw through the grime to the surprising heart of your English client. You have a curious talent for judging character, especially considering our very different cultures. Come on, say something poignant. Don't just stand there like an idiot. I don't think there's anything curious about it. Oh, are you going to say some race stuff? Are you going to be like, we are all the same? Stop dividing the classes and the races and everything else? Whether we're from the Empire of Great Britain or the Empire of Japan, we're all human beings. We're not so very different on the inside. Man, y'all, why is this game going to make me cry? This cartoon lawyer game that's over the top is pulling up emotions out of me that I'm not prepared to deal with. We're not so very different on the inside, he says. You know, I took this case for one very simple reason. To lock swords with you once again here in the courtroom. You did? When I encountered you the first time 2 months ago, it reminded me of toasting friendship and trust with another Nipponese, only to find my trust betrayed. Through you, I hope to look into the eyes of that man I once knew and try to understand. You mentioned something similar earlier today, about total betrayal at the hands of the Japanese. What happened exactly? Well, you may ask. And one day, when the time comes, you will learn the answer, whether you like it or not. It's very chilling, right? All right. Then I'll wait for that day if I must. Van Zykes is the absolute best character in this whole game. Coming to be known as the Reaper of the Bailey in my retirement from service 5 years ago, it gives me cause to wonder if our meeting has some deeper purpose. How many of those glasses? I mean, you must go to Costco and just buy like a case of those glasses. So farewell, my learned Nipponese fellow, until we meet again. There's got to be some dialogue after this, right? 17th of April, 5:24 p.m., the Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. It's done. It's over at last. But where's Iris disappeared to? Gina! Ah! Congratulations, Gina. I knew it all along. I knew you were innocent. I mean, we're all very happy, but, like, can we still take a minute and kind of think about that Pop Windebank was murdered? Like, doesn't seem like anybody's mourning Pop Windebank. Well, you did what you said, Mr. Naruto. You believed in me right up to the end. You're as odd as your name. What's odd about it? I told you I had faith in you, didn't I? Alright, and this is coming from Charlie Nunner 2. Just because this game's got my emotions worked up. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is, what your culture is. What matters are your actions. And you should only be judged by the actions you take. You can be a bad person, you can be a good person. Most people are a little of both. Everybody's a little of both, let's be honest. Your actions determine who you are, not anything else. Charlie 92 is going to be out with that. Let's continue on. No one ever has before. See? Kept promising me properly. That's awful. I figured something out today. All my life, growing up in the slums, I've never trusted no one. That's just because I've been scared of being stabbed in the back. I mean, the more you trust someone, the more it hurts when they let you down. Ain't that the bloomin' truth, Gina? But you can't keep those walls up. Yes, I think I can understand that. After all, I had a taste of it in that trial 2 months ago. I chose to trust someone and paid for it. That betrayal left a big scar. You know, though, Gina, I worked something out quite recently, too. Trusting in someone else is really an exercise in learning to trust yourself. When your gut tells you it's the right thing to do, and your trust is rewarded, there's no better feeling in the world. I think I have you to thank for reminding me of that valuable lesson. Oh, well, if you say so. Don't make a fat lot of sense to me, though. I'm trying to say that putting my faith in you, Gina, has been a real pleasure. For crying out loud, pack it in. But I suppose I sort of feel the same way. I mean, sometimes trusting someone else is, you know, alright. Thanks. This is the way I see it, Ryunosuke. A defense lawyer is only as good as his faith in his client. And that comes down to how much faith he has in himself. Or she. After this experience, I'm starting to feel like I understand what you mean, Kazuma. Am I living up to your expectations? Am I turning out to be the lawyer you believed I could be? I think so. Pardon the interruption. But what the deuce does a man have to do to be noticed around here, my dear fellow? Ah, that voice. It's too late for that voice now, Mr. Naruhodo. I've been standing here patiently in the corner of the room for an eternity. Ahaha, yes, it was me all along. I would have said when you finally noticed me. But you people with your incessant babbling. Ah, but Mr. Sholmes. Ahaha, yes, it was me all along. You see? Mr. Sholmes is an insane person. I'd assumed you'd be taken back to the hospital, to be honest. Indeed I was, but I managed to escape again. Oh. I happen to be aware of one or two foibles of the doctor who was tending to me. I merely made my knowledge of them known to the man, and he happily issued me with a leave of absence. How very above board. But enough of my adventures. That was a fine victory, Mr. Naruhodo. Your tireless efforts justly rewarded, I feel. Congratulations are in order. As a close friend, I tip my hat at you. Oh, thank you? Some great detective you are. Great at being cold as ice, maybe. Have I irked you in some way, Miss Lestrade? While you've been having a snooze in your nice soft bed, some of us have been fighting for our lives. Ah, well, that bullet did cause me to lose a substantial amount of blood, it's true. So I have indeed been feeling somewhat cold. Not perhaps as cold as ice, but well, have a feel. Could you take your hands off my neck, please, Mr. Sholmes? And, in some way, I suppose, congratulations are in order for you too, Miss Lestrade. What's that supposed to mean? Why so half-hearted? Well, naturally, it isn't my intention to alarm you, but an acquittal in trial with that particular prosecutor is perhaps a little precarious. Well done, Mr. Sholmes. Not alarming in the slightest. Oh, the Reaper, you mean? Because anyone who's found not guilty in a trial he was working on winds up dead anyway, is that it? That very point I was trying to make. As exemplified by the fate of Mr. McGilded, in fact. Ah, but of course, I pay no attention to such irrational drivel myself. Yeah, well, it don't bother me. Oh, really? Of course not. The way I see it, the Reaper's a bit like I'm upstairs. Or him upstairs. Him upstairs? You mean like God? Yeah, him upstairs. Knows what's what, right? He knows what people are like on the inside. He won't have a go at the wrong end of the stick. There are some coves like that bogtrotter what are rotten to the core. And at the end of the day, him upstairs makes sure they get what they deserve. I suppose that's one way of looking at it. Divine justice is one thing, though. The Reaper taking matters into his own hands and claiming lives is another. Well, I ain't like the McGildeds of the world, so I ain't scared. I got principles, see? A trait in you which is to be admired, Miss Lestrade. Oi, just give it a rest, all right? As I was saying, congratulations are in order. The news of your acquittal was very welcome news to me indeed. Let me express my heartfelt congratulations, Gina. Well, there you are, Hurley. How long have you been here? Iris? Honestly, I went to the main entrance especially to meet you there. Ah, Iris, my dear. I do apologize. But wait until I tell you what happened. This pair made utter fools of themselves. What happened? As you know, I have a penchant for disguise. I was hiding in this room dressed as a bailiff. But these dolts didn't notice my presence at all. Ha 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 ha. They had no idea. Can you imagine, Iris? Would you credit it? I'm not sure, really. Beg your pardon? I'm sorry, Hurley, but you just don't have the weighty presence you seem to think you have. In fact, you really ought to be careful about that. It's going to land you in trouble one day. I'll be careful. Ouch. Anyways, it's such a shame. I was so hoping to throw a party for Jenny tonight. But you won't be able to come, will you? Don't look at me like I'm going to be going nowhere for a while. You heard the judge's patter. I got stuff to make amends for, apparently. All them offenses. What was it again? Breaking and entering, taking the bogtrotter's stuff, and what was in his lug, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I think you'll find that basically being a pickpocket is the main offense. But diving ain't an offense. It's a job, isn't it? No, it's an offense. I don't think so. Still, it has got me thinking, all this. Maybe I should start looking for another line of work. I mean, you didn't start off as a lawyer, did you, Odo? Well, no. But I was never a pickpocket. Well, anyway, I reckon I can make a change. You should be a courtroom assistant. I'm going to do something for all them lot like me from the slums, something that makes a difference for them. That's a wonderful idea, Jenny, and I'm sure you can do it. Hehehe. What is it? She's crying. Nothing. Miss Gina Lestrade. The prison carriage has arrived, ma'am. Come with me to the rear gate at once. Right. Well, looks like I'm off then. Yes, goodbye, Gina. And good luck. Odo? Yes? Ah! What? What was that for? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say, so... Ah, indeed. Perhaps the situation calls for a phrase hitherto missing from your vocabulary, Miss Lestrade. Yeah? On occasions such as this, I would recommend a simple thank you. Oh. Oh, yeah. It's good advice, Jenny. Right. I see. Well... Thanks, Odo. Oh, this freaking game. Why is it drawing emotion out of my eyeballs? Thank you for everything what you've done for believing in me. You're welcome, Jenny. Get your life together. Come out and be my assistant. Not at all. In fact, that should be my line. Thank you, Gina. Well, there she goes. Wonder if I'll ever see her again. Well, well, quite the indomitable pick purse. Oh, I nearly forgot. I bought her paper outside. It's a special edition, and this trial is all over the front page. Pickpocket's innocence proven. Isn't that wonderful? You should have shown it to Gina, Iris. She would have been thrilled. Oh no, how silly of me. Ah, but anyway, would you like the good news or the bad news? Not again. Well, what do you say, Runo? Hurley? As usual, I think I'd rather get the bad news out of the way first. Absolutely not. I have no intention of listening to anything but good news. And there you have it. How people answer that question says a lot about them, doesn't it? Let's not go there. All right then, maybe let's start with the good news this time. The rain has finally stopped. It was a record level of rainfall, apparently. Well, that's good news indeed, but we can journey back in greater comfort. All right then, what's the bad news? The huge storm has left the seas very choppy. The channel in particular is awful, so sailings out of Dover have been delayed by a day or more. Wait, Dover? That's right. If we head to the station immediately, we may still make it in time to wave Susie off. Let's go. But, there won't be a train, surely. We couldn't be that lucky. Who do you think I am, Mr. Naruhodo? Mr. Sholmes? I rushed to Victoria Station earlier and made arrangements for a special express. If we hurry now, we should be there in time for dinner. And I know of a fine restaurant that serves the most delicious baked sole. I don't. The great detective does it again. Indeed he does. I happen to be aware of a number of the rail transport director's foibles. What? Merely made my knowledge of them known to the man, and he happily laid on the locomotive. Elementary. Just an idea, but it might be wise to stop manipulating people that way. What are we waiting for then? To London, Victoria. Let's go see Miss Husato. Let's go wave her off. 18th April, 5:32 a.m. Port of Dover, Quayside. Or Quayside. That took somewhat longer than I anticipated. Susie Boat must be about to leave now. Miss Husato, where are you? There she is. Over there, look. Looks like she's reading something.
Hold it!
Don't throw it in the ocean. Miss Husato, wait, what are you doing? She can teleport. That explains a lot. Mr. Naruhodo, what are you doing here? We came as soon as we could after the trial. I mean, we heard that sailings were being delayed due to the bad weather, you see. Oh, I see. Then tell me, how did Gina's trial go? It went well. She was acquitted. The glove didn't fit, so they had to acquit. That's wonderful. Really wonderful news. The book you were about to throw into the sea. It was your Encyclopedia of British Law, wasn't it? Oh dear, I was hoping you hadn't seen that. I'm not worthy of practicing law in any way now. So I was saying my final farewell. You were saying goodbye to law? You? Susato-san? Would I be correct in assuming it's because of the peephole, Miss Husato? I deliberately altered the scene of a crime, and then I tried to hide the fact. What I did is utterly unforgivable. That reminds me. How did you even come to have this, Susie? On the evening of the incident, Mr. Sholmes had invited Gina to dinner, if you remember. Oh yes, we had a wonderful time. Well, Gina gave us a little introductory lesson, didn't she? To the art of pickpocketing, I mean. Oh, that was so much fun. I stole Runo's armband. Yes, please don't do that again, Iris. That band's very important to me. Well, if it's so important, you should pay more attention to it. You didn't notice for ages. On a whim, I thought it would be fun to see if I could take the cat flap-a-mat. So I put it up my sleeve. Really? And then I rather forgot about it until I found myself in Mr. Winbank's shop with it later that night. I see. And then... Susato witness it? Mr. Sholmes! Mr. Sholmes! Leave me, Mr. Naruhodo. Right. After Mr. Naruhodo had left the shop, I started to think that doors started to play on my mind. The storeroom door, you mean? Yes. If Gina was anywhere in the shop, I realized it could only be behind that door. At that moment, the little device that I had up my sleeve sprang to mind. I was so worried about Gina, I simply had to know. So I used the cat flap-a-mat to make the peephole in the door. As captured in a photographic print of the shop. By one of Hurley's red-handed recorders. Indeed, it was of the first importance, that point. Precisely when the peephole was made, that information would prove to be Mr. Naruhodo's greatest weapon. Though naturally without proof, it would have amounted to nothing. But when I looked through the hole in the door, The sight of that met my eyes made my blood run cold. Thoughts started to run through my mind. I remembered that trial 2 months earlier, the trial of Magnus McGilded. I thought about how he had manipulated the evidence and arranged false testimony to secure his freedom. It made the British justice system feel very dark and sinister to me. And then a terrible thought occurred to me. What if some wicked criminal was planning to do the same thing now? Because from the appearance of the crime scene, it looked exactly as though Gina had shot Mr. Windybank. Even though I was sure she would never have done such a thing. You were worried that the true culprit would try to frame her for the crime? That's right, but then I realized it would be very difficult for anyone to give false testimony in this case. What do you mean? Well, the crime appeared to have happened behind the door of a locked room. For someone to claim falsely to have witnessed it, there would have to be a way to see behind the door. Ah. For which, a peephole would be the very thing. Only the peephole I had made wasn't actually there until after the crime had been committed, of course. And the criminal would know that, so it wouldn't make any difference. But the possibility of a rather ingenious trap was there, was it not? A trap? Is that why she did it? So is that why you kept it a secret, Susie? You never mentioned that you made the peephole to anyone, not even to the police? I know. And I knew at the time what I was doing was wrong. A criminal offense, even. That's why I decided to confide in Mr. Sholmes. If Mr. Naruhodo was completely backed into a corner, with no other possible means of escape, the truth about the peephole could save him. That was my plan. She really does think of everything. But then, why didn't you just tell me everything before the trial began? My dear fellow, you're not thinking straight. If she had done that, it would have rendered you complicit in the whole escapade. Ah. You could have become disbarred if you had been seen to have knowingly tampered with a crime scene. So Miss Usada decided to shoulder the burden of responsibility alone. For your sake and Miss Lestrada's. Miss Usada. The truth is, when it happened, I did it because I'd lost a little of my faith in the law. Oh. I was worried that the right person would be convicted of the crime. But the moment I allowed myself to think that is the moment I lost my right to call myself a judicial assistant. What you did isn't comparable to what he did. Graydon is the one who lied in the witness stand using that peephole as a way to implicate Gina. Let me grab some water real quick. There's a lot of dialogue here. And besides, if the peephole inconsistency hadn't existed, I'm not at all sure that she would have been acquitted in the end. Miss Usado, what you did saved Gina's life. Well, with your kind words, Mr. Naruhodo, you've saved me too, from my regrets. Aw. Well, we must all be thankful for Miss Lestrada's freedom has been assured. Yes, exactly. Although some of the loose ends in that trial will continue to play on my mind, I'm sure. But the revelation that the music box disc contained secret messages, Mr. Naruhodo. What a triumph to work that out. I'm full of admiration. Well, actually, that argument wasn't quite as compelling as I thought it was. Oh, it wasn't? There was a communication officer among the jury members, you see, a telegraph operator. And she said that the majority of the sounds on the disc were just meaningless tones. As one would expect, after all, we are talking about secret government communications. No doubt they were written in cipher to avoid being readily understood should they have been intercepted. In cipher? I see. So then we could never have hoped to understand the message anyway. Nonsense, my dear fellow. It's quite a zero-pipe problem, I assure you. He's worked them out, hasn't he? A. So. G. Asagi. What? Well, that can't be a real word, can it? How funny. Wait, Iris, what did you just say? Yeah, that's Susato's last name. Oh, I just said Asagi. Does that word mean something to you? Mean something? Asagi was the name of my best friend. Oh, no, that's not. She's Mikotoba. Yeah, Asagi was Kazuma's last name. What? But how? How do you know that name, Iris? I wrote it down during the trial before when the message was playing on the music box. She transcribed it on the fly? She really is a genius. I thought the message probably wouldn't be written out in plain Morse code, so I tried various ways to interpret it. But whatever I tried, the words just didn't seem to make any sense. That is, in English at least. Oh. It suddenly occurred to me, you see, there's more than one Morse code, not just the English variety. Various countries around the world have altered and added to Morse code to use it in their own languages. I don't believe it. Are you saying... That's right. I've only actually seen a chart of Japanese Morse code once before. But I think it's based on the Iroha pentagram, isn't it? And you mean to say that in Japanese Morse code the message says Asagi? Yes, I think so. Sorry, but I don't remember all of the Japanese Morse code. Iris, would you let me see that? Miss Usato, do you know it? Do you know Japanese Morse code? Yes, I spent some time studying it. Because I'm quite sure Morse code will become ever more important for international communications. Then might I recommend, my dear madam, that you focus your efforts on the English version? Be that as it may, Iris, show me the message, please. Are we sure that we want to read this message? Because now we are in possession of government secrets, which then makes us criminals. Of course. But what can this possibly mean? Whatever it is, whatever is in that long sequence of supposedly meaningless dots and dashes, it's made the color drain from Susato-san's face. There's no doubt that this message is written in Japanese Morse code. So the British Empire has been using Japanese for its secret communications? I don't understand the reason why, but the message appears to be a list of 4 people's names. 4 names? The first is K. Asagi. Kazuma Asagi. Why? Why was his name on that disc? The second is A. Shin. Shin. I don't recognize that name. The third is T. Gureguson. Gregson, right? Gregson? Ah, it would seem Tobias Gregson is the third man on the list. And what's his name doing on a secret government communication as well? And the last name? What's the matter, Miss Usato? It's just so strange, so unexpected. Oh, what is it, Susie? Don't keep us in suspense. It's your dad, ain't it? The last name is J. Wilson. Yep. What? Wilson? John H. Wilson? You mean Daddy? It says only J. Wilson, so I'm afraid I can't be sure. Then after the 4 names, it reads, if I translate from Japanese, that is all 4. And that's the end of the message. Or rather, the end of what you noted down, Iris. Just can't believe it. Who would ever have thought that those discs contains Japanese Morse code? Not to mention a strange list of some disturbingly familiar names. It would appear that this particular message is a communication of some kind between Great Britain and the Empire of Japan. So Daddy could be in Japan then, where Susie and Runo come from. Oh, well. No. It's not very likely, really, is it? I mean, there are thousands of people with the surname Wilson, and there must be lots of J's among them. Professor John H. Wilson, visiting professor of medicine at the Imperial Ume University. But we can't tell Iris about that now. We just can't. This is so strange. Somehow, in solving the case of Mr. Windibank's murder today, I feel like I've rolled back a boulder at the mouth of a very dark cave. I do wonder if perhaps it's a dark cave that we shouldn't go wandering inside. Honk. Oh dear, the ship is going to set sail soon. Yes, it seems so. I'll sail on that steamship first to the port of Dunkirk in France, then I'll change onto a larger passenger vessel bound for Japan. You're really going then, Susie. We wish you a safe passage, Miss Husato. Thank you so much. I wish all of you the very best. Miss Husato, I had hoped to have you always at my side to guide me and support me. Mr. Naruhodo, please, come back soon. As far as I'm concerned, you really are the very best judicial assistant in the world. I'm quite sure I'll be back before you know it. Really, Susie? Oh, now don't forget, Iris. I made you a promise I've yet to fulfill. A promise? About your manuscript. Ah. Oh yes, the Hound of the Baskervilles. Why do I keep wanting to say Baskervilles for that? Baskervilles. Well, I'll be waiting for you then, Susie. Promise is a promise. Definitely, Iris. Mr. Naruhodo? Yes? Do you remember the first time we met? Yes, of course. On the SS Buria when I was dragged out from that wardrobe, still half asleep. If I remember rightly, you threw me halfway across the cabin with a Susato takedown. You know very well what I'm talking about after that. It's strange, but being thrown together as we were in that case, I somehow felt straight away that you were the perfect person to continue Kazuma-sama's great legacy. Miss Husato, and my instincts were right. I really want to believe. No, I'm sure that I'll be back soon. Farewell until then. Is that it? Credits? Animation.
Somehow we seem to have come to the end of the adventures of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Or the first volume, at least. Looking back now, it feels as though fate has led me on this journey. Fate led me to becoming a lawyer, to traveling halfway around the world, to meeting the great detective. I'm sure there'll be trials and tribulations ahead. Of course there will. But whatever happens, I know I'll be able to turn my fortunes around. After all, I have the greatest friends in the world on my side.
Roll credits. Oh, more dialogue. Ah, yes, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, Mr. Sholmes? I have some rather awkward news. The railway company has decided to sue over the Special Express train, apparently. Huh? It caused such a commotion on the line. All the other trains had to wait at stations. But really, we would never have made it to Dover in time otherwise. Anyway, I explained everything and how it was all your fault. Huh? I believe a formal complaint should be delivered to your office tomorrow. But not to worry, my dear fellow. Gordon and Miss Usato, you love defending yourself in court. Huh? What? It's alright. Perfectly happy to testify. He really didn't look like the sort of man who'd do something so outrageous. See? Mr. Sholmes? Yes? A word, if you don't mind. Why, certainly. Any word you like. Bellow it out, my dear fellow. Oh yes, I love Runo's words, and I know just the ones he'll use here. Then I really must say...
Objection!
Did we do it? There we go, credits. All right, let's talk about it. So, I realize this is an extremely long final episode, but I wanted to get the credits. Whoops, in the following weeks, hundreds of music boxes arrived at Baker Street from all over Europe. Something was afoot. Though it transpired, I'd ordered them all myself, so I advertised them for sale with used by Mr. Sholmes to solve an important case. And the money I've earned, consulting detective work pays a pittance by comparison. This was my first Ace Attorney game ever. I didn't know what exactly to expect other than puzzle solving. I haven't slept a wink. This manuscript is due tomorrow now. When I'm this busy, Hurley usually cooks me breakfast. Well, cooks is an overstatement for some dry toast and insipid coffee. I do miss Susie and her lovely Japanese breakfast. But more than a puzzle game, it seems to be a visual novel. Not that I'm complaining, just not what I expected. And that's my fault. Witness, your testimony is riddled with contradictions. Exactly. Rarely do rare Koban coins hide under rare stakes themselves. Well, Edo Nosa knows his father is an innocent man. Are you calling... I missed it. Witnesses, my courtroom is no place for your petty arguments. I have to read these quickly because they auto-scroll. Having delivered the Russian dancer to shore in Shanghai, I laid low on the steamship for a while. But last night, I apprehended an extremely suspicious Japanese national on board. I've done nothing wrong. All I did was give Wagahai's offspring refuge in my pocket. A man brings some kittens on board and suddenly he's a hardened criminal. It's not fair. But yeah, fun game, a lot longer than I expected. Ton of dialogue, which, when doing a Let's Play like this, is rough on your throat. Scientific investigation will be the gold standard for policing in the new age. I dreamt of a world governed by the tenets of order and discipline. Like a great clock, in fact, whose hundreds of parts mesh together in perfect unison. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have but 2 minutes and 37 seconds until my next appointment. But yeah, so this, the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is in fact 2 games. This is the Ace Attorney Great Adventures, I think. The first volume, Great Ace Attorney Adventure. The latest Rants magazine is out. Whenever I say that one line she wrote now, I get a standing ovation. Want to hear it? Huh. Not bad, I suppose, for an amateur. Glug, glug, glug. Ha. Her ladyship puts me to shame. So yeah, I will be playing the second game, the second half of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, but not for a while. Probably sometime next year. And for reference, it's the end of 2021. December is in a few weeks. Been visiting the old girl on a daily basis, of course. Joni, must say, battling with those bally stares every day has done wonders for the Dicky Peg. Managing rather well with the housework, too. Got this maid business taped up, I'd say. Hope the gossiping neighbors don't realize the man of the house is his own maid. So yeah, I will get to it. I started a new career recently, and I have a ton of other games that I have on my list. It's a lot of work. I have a full-time job. I have 2 kids. I do this on the weekends, late at night. My Rolly is back on the beat again, all thanks to the Reaper. There's nothing to enjoy more these days than hunting out small change in the gutter. I'm a better Bobby now, looking out for Londoners, their dropped happenings, and my lovely wife. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up. There's a lot of Star Citizen content that I'm focused on doing here soon. I've got a few other Let's Plays and games to finish up, and then I will make it back to this series. I promise, so just look out for it. It will be coming probably in a few months. Looks like I'm going to be doing time for a bit now, but Iris comes every day for a natter, so it ain't too boring. She's always going on about all them cases what Sholmes is looking into. Criminal investigations are kind of interesting when you get into them. I'm telling you, she's going to become a new assistant, I believe so. Or at least work with us. But yeah, overall great game, and I really didn't expect to feel like real emotions near the end there with the talks about racism and trusting people. Graydon, yes, I renounced my upbringing and chose a life of sophisticated crime, but regrets? Please. I mean, you did kill a man. Give over, bruv. That ain't the Ash we used to know. We got time in here to plan the comeback of Milverton and Skulkin's milk run. The 3 Musket Watsits. Milking the neighbors for all it's worth. But yeah, fun game, great stories. Cases seem a little long. I wish they were a little shorter, but it's just how the game is. And sometimes it's not quite obvious. This past 6 months has been a time I shall remember forevermore. Painful goodbyes and wonderful encounters. I've come to realize that's what life is all about. Naruhodo-san, I promise your assistant will return to you one day. But for now, I'll leave you with the many memories and a heartfelt wish that life will treat you well. But yeah, sometimes it's difficult to tell the game what you want to tell it. Like I figured out a few things but didn't know how to present the evidence correctly. That's probably my fault more than anything. Oh, Waggy! Rest of the credits roll? Or was that it? Yeah, this has got to be the rest of the credits. So yeah, like I was saying, I wish, I know this was a 3DS game, but I wish for the release for computer they had voice acting, full voice acting. I think that was my biggest complaint. Here I am talking with a scratchy throat as it is. Excuse me, let me drink some water. Voice acting would be good. And the ability to better tell how to present some of the things that I figured out in some of the cases seemed a little finicky in how they wanted me to present it. But I don't really have an answer for how you would fix that, so I don't really want to complain about that aspect too much. But yeah, voice acting would have been great. Would have saved my saved my throat. Would have made it to where I could have recorded more in a session. I think the max I recorded for any of these was about 3-hour session, which I'm actually getting close to now in this session with this finale here. But my throat would just hurt so much I would have to stop and wait a few days and then try again. So it made it take a long time for me to actually do this playthrough. I think we're going to be at about 45 hours total, maybe 43 for this first half of this game. Like I said, maybe next spring, 2022, spring or summer. Just depends on how many other games I got, and it also depends on the interest I have in this. If you guys really want this series to come back sooner, please comment on this final episode here and say, hey, we want it back. Haven't seemed to get a lot of views on this, and I understand that. This is an older game, and it's very niche in its appearance. But yeah, if I get enough, maybe I can bump it up on the schedule a little bit sooner, maybe the end of winter, beginning of spring. I could start the second playthrough of the other half of this game. But for now, we'll leave this as the finale for Great Ace Attorney Chronicles Volume 1, I guess I'll put as the finale. Finale Volume 1. And then just stay tuned. Until then, hope you enjoy my other Let's Plays and content. As always, please feel free to suggest other games that you would enjoy watching me play. And if you have any advice on something I could do to make these videos more entertaining, hey, let me know that as well. Some examples of that advice is I've gotten a shortened variation of my intros. I'm sure you've noticed for subsequent episodes of any given series. I only play the full intro on the first entry in the series, and other than that, we play the small intro that lasts, I want to say it's like 6 seconds, so as to not to pull you out of the game. Longer episodes may be a thing, but I think 30 minutes is right about the sweet spot for a Let's Play. Gives you enough time to get some content without too much time to where you get bored and want to do something else. So 30 minutes is probably where I'm going to leave that, but I am open to suggestions. So tell me what you thought of this game. Who's your favorite characters? What was your favorite case? Who's your favorite dialogue? I think personally, Lord Van Zykes was my favorite character. He was just flamboyant, over the top, Dracula-esque. But you could tell that like he actually wanted to get to the truth. He wasn't a prosecutor just for like fame or fortune. He was a prosecutor because he wanted some justice in the world. And he did have his flaws. All characters did. It seemed just like everybody in this whole series was racist except for the main character. But I think we're starting to tear down those walls. I enjoyed the Skulkin brothers. I thought they were hilarious. And yet, even Egbert Benedict there, he did a good job of making us hate him. That was the intent. Yeah, and Jenny, of course. Iris, Susato. Everybody's great. Great cast of characters. Fun game. Now I know more of what I'm getting myself into when I play these games. I think I'll enjoy them a little more as well, too. Just because of that. Alright, we'll just let the rest of the credits roll here, and that'll do it for this playthrough of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and I'm just going to label this as Volume 1, I guess, for the finale. If you stuck around this far, thank you. Thank you for your support. Does this take us back to the Great Ace Attorney Adventures is what this one's called. Should go back to title screen and be able to choose the second one now. We got an achievement. It says Fleeting Farewell. It's cool artwork. That does it. We're at the title screen now. Thanks for sticking with me this far. If you enjoy my content, please consider a like, a comment, or a subscribe. It helps my channel out tremendously. I'm trying to get it to grow. This is a hobby that I enjoy doing, and I like to have the encouragement to keep doing it. And that's it. Stay tuned. Follow some of my next series and playthroughs, and eventually we'll get back around and we'll do the second half of this collection of games. Thank you, and bye-bye.